Hey everybody, welcome to Grilling at the Green. I am Jeff Tracy. How's your golf and your food this week? As you can tell, my food is more than abundant, but my golf game is in a constant flux. But that's why we talk to people like my guest today, Kay McMahon. I actually printed out all your accolades, but I ran out of paper. Okay. So I will just say a few things. Kay's in the LPGA Professionals Hall of Fame. LPGA Top 50 and the Best Teachers, Golf Magazine Top Regional Teacher, LPGA National Teacher of the Year, Golf Digest 50 Best Women Teachers in America, so on and so on and so on, and the past president of LPGA Professionals. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff, for having me. So it's kind of fun listening to you talk about you're running out of paper. So it's kind of I've been around here for a while. We'll just say it, put it that way.
Well,
So
2 weeks is a long time. Now, come on.
that's right. That's
That's
right.
that's right. Tell us about your practice. And I don't mean your practice sessions, I mean your practice of what you teach people. Because one of the things, if you'll allow me to kind of guide you a bit, I watched a couple of your videos and stuff, and you were like basic fundamentals, if you'll allow me, old school, because I'm old school like that,
Mhm.
versus all the high tech stuff. I mean, it has a place. I'm not again it, as they used to say in the movies, but I think sometimes people, and especially a little later in life, can get overwhelmed by the high tech, teaching stuff. So tell us about how you teach and your thoughts on what I just asked.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. We're in the age of technology, and I've actually been using a lot of technology for a long time. I've been using video way back before
Mhm.
everyone said that shouldn't be using video because nobody wanted to see their swings or whatever. So I will go back at least 30 years. That the first video machine I had that I had to bring on the thing was like a small closet that three guys had to bring out for me. So
Right.
it was, now we're down to my iPad. So it's had this progression. I do think, though, that technology and all the numbers and all the data are good for your, let's say, elite golfer, your one that's, your single digit probably, but even some of them don't know what to do with all the numbers. They kind of think that they do. The numbers are important.
Hmm.
The way I think that the we got a recreational golfer out there, and there's more of them than the elite golfer. We have to simplify how we actually teach it, and I think the whole industry talks about growing the game. Well, I say you have to grow golfers to grow the game, and to do that, if we get so complicated, they feel like every person that comes to me goes, well, and I say this all the time, they got 1,001 things to do in 1.2 seconds. And they go, I know, I don't know which one to do. So it gets too complicated. So I've been the last good 25 years, 20 years trying to simplify it for the average person. I can take all that information, but I think you gotta make it simple because I do believe the golf swing is simple. The game's
Yeah.
hard, but the golf
Yeah.
swing's simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I was in thinking about this show today. And people listen to the show has heard me say this 100 different times. You can go to the golf magazines, you can go to the online stuff. It's all good. Don't get me wrong. But there'll be 50 different ways to hit a wedge shot, just as a made up example. And I think people get a little confused. I mean, if you're a nerd, like I kind of am, you dig into it and you go, yeah, 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 okay. But if just the average golfer is saying that, and one person's okay, you put a towel under here and you do this, or you spin 3 times to the right and put an orange in your ear, whatever it is, I think they can get overwhelmed with that. And I agree to your previous statement that the technology is good, but what do you do with it? Okay. So let me
Correct.
preface it by that.
And most people don't know what to do with it. I've had people that own simulators, and I finally said, "Do you understand the numbers that are all on the bottom?" And they go, "No." I said, "How long have you had this machine?" They go, "For a couple of years." And I'm going, "And you have this thing that just it shows you the ball flight, which does help because people look off the ball flight, but they don't know
Right.
what the numbers mean, et cetera, et cetera." So you're absolutely right that it's important, but for the average golfer, they want to learn how to make solid contact, and so. I don't talk about the numbers very often to people. I mean, I have to understand them, but I think what we don't do as a profession is everybody talks about the ball. And really, if you have to understand how I teach it, is you have to understand the tool. let's understand how the club is designed and let's understand how to operate the tool. So I talk about it like you got a hammer and a nail. It's not about the nail. The nail's not going to do anything unless I operate that hammer correctly.
Right.
And I think that that's more the value of where, how does this club work? Most people don't even understand how the club is designed. That's the first thing I teach them. All the clubs are different. Each club is different than the next.
Sure. Do you think sometimes, Kay, though, that with, oh gosh, there's a million golf videos out there now. And some of them are a lot of fun and some of them are very instructional. Some of them are a bit redundant. That goes any sport, anything you like to do. But should the person when they're getting a lesson from Kay, should they think I've my swing has got to be exactly like the video said? Or should it be I've got to do the mechanics the best I can, and that's what my swing turns out to be? Does that make sense?
Yes. I talk about them. I'll answer this in kind of in two parts, is
Sure.
that everyone talks about the mental aspect, and there's a whole bunch of sports gurus out there. I think that's important, and it's important to feel confident. But I think you really have to have mechanics first to be confident. Because if I keep topping the ball, let's just say, or hitting it
Yeah.
in the woods, I can feel as confident as I want to, but I'm still hitting it in the woods. So if I can have some success at hitting a golf ball relatively straight and in the air, I'm going to start to feel more confident. So I sometimes think we get the confidence factor, the carriage before the horse, the kind of
Yeah.
backwards. So I think that they really have to understand mechanics. Now, the second part of that, I'll answer it this way. Everyone's different.
Hmm.
I think the club has to be somewhere in a zone to hit the ball. And when I talk about it, it has to be somewhere where it's relatively on a good path and relatively square.
Yeah. I honestly didn't have a golf lesson until probably 10 years ago. Okay. And I played okay for the amount of that I played. All right. I would have friends that I knew were really good golfers and played with. They'd help me a little bit like on a chip shot or something like that, but I never asked. And then when I started doing the golf media stuff, because I had worked in media and other aspects, and so I hooked up with a teacher and he helped me through some stuff and I learned a ton. I just learned a ton. And probably the biggest thing I learned was more definitively the reasons why I was doing certain things, right or wrong, why I was doing them. And I think that that helped me. But I know a lot of people that have never had a golf lesson in their life and they're double digits, but they have no aspirations either to try to go compete in the US Senior Open or something, you know what I mean? So they like that. And I would always recommend that somebody go to a professional like you, even if they only did it a half a dozen times, it will help.
Well, I think a lot of people, if I look at the statistics, a lot of people want to take lessons, but they're afraid, and this is the concept they have, that they're going to get worse if they take a lesson. So
Hmm.
sometimes they want to stay kind of right where they are. Now, I think what happens is when they do take a lesson, they're not positive if they're getting a good lesson or a bad lesson. So going back to what you said, I think if you can understand what you're doing or why the ball goes in the woods or why you top it, you have a better way of them playing. So it's better to understand it. So I think that a lot of people should take lessons. One of the recommendations I usually say is if you're going to take lessons, go interview, go talk to that person first before you take the lesson. Find
Hmm.
if they're on the same page, if they want to listen to you, if the goals match, rather than just first taking a lesson. And I think it's very helpful. So I always offer an introductory phone call with me first to find out if they like it. And then I also, what I do is I give them a money back guarantee for that first lesson. If they don't like what I have to say, they don't have to pay. They have to come and find out if they like my menu. I'll put it
Well,
that
there
way.
you go. Kay and I are going to take a quick break and we're going to be back here on Grilling at the Green. Just a couple minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. Of course, I'm JT, and today we've got Kay McMahon with us. Kay is a well-known teacher, but I was just going to make a joke about between Florida and Maine and New York and all these places that you have or do still teach. And because I'm looking out the window right here out of the studio and it's snowing. So I'm I'm jealous of, especially when you say Florida like that.
Well,
Um,
I'll make you feel better. I'm in upstate New York right now, and I've got about 2 feet of snow out that window. So it's
oh,
okay.
okay.
But
Okay.
I'm teaching in some simulators now, so I'm not even in Florida right now.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. One of your videos that I watched was GCAP, if you will, the explanation of that, and I thought that was very interesting as far as what we were talking about in the previous segment. Maybe if you've never had a lesson or you're just getting into the game, I thought that was really appropriate. And I'd like you to kind of, how did you develop that, and how effective has it been for you and your students?
Well, I will say this. It is probably the most effective thing that I teach, and I'll explain what GCAP stands for. GCAP is how you set up or have a pre-shot routine.
Hmm.
And everyone talks about a pre-shot routine, but they really don't know what it means. Typically in the industry, when you're starting out, everyone teaches you posture first. They teach posture. And then I get all these people in a very strange posture position. And if they can hit a golf ball with these strange posture positions, I know they can hit a golf ball if I can get them in a posture position. So I believe that we teach posture out of order. And in 25, 30 years, I have yet to teach posture, but I can get anybody in a perfect posture position without teaching it. So GCAP stands for the order of how we get set up. The G will stand for grip. The C stands for the club head. The A stands for alignment, which is simply a line across my toes, and the P stands for posture. So my analogy is this, is that let's say we're going to set the table for dinner. And we've got the placemat, the plates, the silverware, the cups and saucers and everything. So it's all the same stuff. All right. So do you put the plate down first and then the placemat? No, because it's the wrong order. So we teach posture first, but the way golf pros do it is, and every time every amateur I've taught for the last 20 years, as soon as I teach them that, they go, that's exactly what golf pros do. So most amateurs waddle up to the ball, and I call it the penguin walk, and they set their feet first. See, you can identify. You've seen it.
Yeah.
So it's the penguin walk.
Yep. Yep.
All right. And then they grip the club, and then they don't know how far to stand from the ball, and then they fiddle and they diddle, and then they look like they're milking the cow with their grip because they keep
Yep.
doing this pumping thing. And then they look at the thing, and then they put the club across there, and then they misaligned it. And for right-handed golfers, they hit it up to the right because they're always lined up to the right. So the way, going back to your question of how I developed it, people would come back to me my first years of teaching, and they were still lined up to the right. And I'd go put the lines down on this, and I go, are they either stupid or am I stupid? Now I'm still collecting the money, but they weren't aligned right. And I realized that it was me that had to change. And so when I realized that how I do it is pick the club up in the air first and I get my grip with the club up in the air. And what golf pros are doing at that point is I don't have a club with me today, but they're getting the leading edge perpendicular to the ground, or what's known as we talk about as square club face.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, every club is different. So every club is a different length and every club is differently designed. Irons, the handle sits ahead, and woods, the handle sits behind. And it's designed like an airplane wing. So if I first pick the club up and then I take my back foot, in this case it would be my right foot for as a right-handed golfer, I step in and set the club down as it's designed, and then I go left foot, right foot. And everyone gets lined up perfectly aimed at their target. They know how far to stand from the ball. They take one look and they're in a perfect posture position,
Yeah.
and they spend less time over the ball. And I've had a group of beginners when I first did this. They actually saved 15 to 20 seconds per swing because they actually didn't fiddle and diddle over the ball. So we call it GCAP, and it's a simple system of setting up from your putter to your driver. And everyone loves it. They go, well, this is too simple. And I go, well, I could make it more complicated, but there's no reason to.
Yeah.
Does that make
No,
sense to you?
yeah, absolutely. Because what you talked about first going to an instructor, My instructor didn't do that because I had already played a lot of golf. All right. So he wasn't worried about that. But I have watched and I have actually had a couple of lessons because of this show that people said, come over, I'll give you a lesson. And it's like, what the hell? Okay. I'll go see what they have to say. And that's the first thing they do is they start messing with your posture. I'm a big guy. Okay. I've put on the poundage over the years. I'm not, thin and svelte like I used to be, if I ever was, maybe when I was 4. But the point is, they start messing with that. And Bruce, my original guy, had something very similar to what you just explained was, grip the club, step up, you know, do that, hit the ball. I mean, it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, bang. It wasn't a come up there and fiddle with your feet. I like your milking a cow. I grew up on a farm, so I like that analogy there, and all of that. And I see that a lot. And I play in a lot of scramble semi-celebrity tournaments, as big as celebrity as you can get where I live, which isn't too big. But you do that, and a lot of these folks that haven't played a lot, they're out there and they're trying to do this and they're trying to line up, and then they're doing this, and then their friend in the golf cart is trying to instruct them, which is just another form of disaster waiting to happen. And so I'm when I saw that, I thought I had to bring that up with you on the show.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I always start that way, and everybody recognizes what I call the penguin walk, and they go, I do that. And then they're told to keep their arms straight, stick their rear end out, bend their knees more. And actually, when they bend their knees more, it sets them back. And so then they bob up and down because they're
It's true.
it's true, you've seen it. And then people so I always say when I'm starting out, I say at the age of 1 you learn posture, you learn how to stand up, so you already know posture. By the age of 13 your mother told you to stand up a little straighter, so that's the second person that's the next person that's going to teach you. Then you meet your golf pro, and now they're going to teach you posture. You already know posture.
Hmm.
But the club, actually, because of how it's designed, if you set it down as it's designed by stepping in, then you're actually aiming the club head as opposed to trying to align your feet. Then what you're really doing is when you set your feet, you're really aligning your feet to the club head. And everyone is perfectly lined up. They don't have to
Yeah.
fill in the middle because the optical illusion is that their feet are going either to the right or to the left of target because of where our eyesight is. But we've proven too that it really does save 15 to 20 seconds per shot. That's a half an hour per round
Yeah, that's
per
a lot.
person. That's a lot. I mean, yeah, we want to start a whole national campaign of you don't have to run your golf ball. We don't have to. I can speed up play by just changing people's setup,
Uh,
period.
I'll support you on that. I will.
Okay.
Okay. Kay and I are going to take a break. We're going to be back in just a couple minutes with more grilling at the green. Proudly part of the Golf News Network, I might say. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Grilling at the Green. I'm JT along with Kay McMahon today. Anybody ever ask you if you were related to Ed McMahon?
Many times,
I'm
yes.
sure. Yeah.
The other one they asked me about was remember Jim McMahon, the football
Oh,
player?
sure.
But he
Sure.
was a little crazier than even Ed. So, but
Yeah.
I'm not related.
I don't see you stabbing yourself in the eye with a fork, Kay, like Jim McMahon did.
That's good.
I don't see that. All the time you've been teaching, what has been your most common, besides what we just talked about with GCAP, but somebody comes to you and maybe they've been playing for a while. And is there a common theme through these students that you kind of look at it and you go, if you just did this one or two small things, you'd have a much better time out there on the golf course?
Yes. Most people either top the ball or they slice it.
Yeah,
You probably agreed. Okay. So topping the ball is probably the number one error. And when people top it, this is the number one error of the million lessons that I've given, is they take the club and at impact, they're flipping their hands. So what happens is the leading edge of the club, their brain says, well, that's going to get the golf ball more airborne because that increases the loft. But what it does is the leading edge comes up and tops the ball. So they keep flipping, and you'll see then everyone's got this chicken wing. Now, everyone thinks that the forward arm, in this case, the
sure.
right-handers, the forward arm has to stay straight. So they focus on the elbow. The number one principle, back to basics, is whatever your hand slash wrist do that operates that club head, like the steering wheel on a car.
Hmm.
I got to be able to do something here, but everyone tends to flip it. hmm So what I really do is talk a lot about the hands and how the hands have to actually work. If your backhand wrist can stay more in what we call extension, which is a slight bend of it this way, then the
Sure.
club face stays square. But we all take that club head and we think we have to do it like a fly swatter, as opposed to basically swinging, almost learning how to swing the handle. That's the number one error in the golf swing. The second
Okay.
error is most people will come over the top of the swing plane. Okay. But the cause of it is, and this is a K-ism, the entire industry talks about turn your hips first, turn your hips first, turn your hips first. The number one principle, as soon as I turn my hips, that turns my shoulder line. The club head will always follow my shoulder line and it'll come across the ball. We'll either pull it, top it, or it'll slice it right. And most people are slicers. So in the golf swing, I never talk about the hips. Okay, that's the last thing that happens. The golf swing is primarily your arms and your hands, like if I'm going to throw a ball, and releasing your back leg. If you release your back leg, like throwing a ball underhand, that
Sure.
turns the hips in the proper sequencing in the proper order. We get the hips turning by teaching people not to turn their hips. I actually get the proper sequencing, and they actually can hit the ball better because then they're better what we call on plane. And the plane of the golf swing is determined by the angle of the shaft in
Sure.
relation
Yeah. Yeah.
to the ground. hmm
You got, I'm over 12, so and I don't turn as well as I used to. And the listeners have heard me say I've had some issues and I got them fixed in my back and stuff, but I don't, I'm a little slight on the hips sometimes, if you will, like that. All right. I think I've made up for it with maybe some extra upper body strength at times. I don't know. I had somebody tell me that once. But do you think that as people get older and unless they're Jack LaLanne or something, and I know you would know who that was, so maybe you can't rotate as much. Is it necessary for them to? I mean, we're not out there trying to hit the ball like Scotty Scheffler. My God, we're just trying to have a good time.
Right. I think I'll go back to one of my mentors, which is Shirley Spork, who's now deceased, but a founding member of the LPGA and a very good
Hmm.
mentor. And she'd say to me, "Okay, well, how can I get more distance?" And I go, "Well, you need to create more leverage. So you got to bend your left arm." She said, "You're absolutely right." So you, because you don't rotate as much, and then people try to get this forward arm so stiff, it's
Right.
it starts to press into your pectoral muscles. Now, as you guys get a little older, you start to get a little thicker.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Okay,
True story.
I know, just observations. So you have to actually soften your elbow to get a little bit more turn. You have to turn your hips a little bit more. But the bigger thing is to really get your arms to operate correctly. When we talk about the forward arm being straight, okay, I'm not so worried about this. I'm always more worried about if this
Yeah.
wrist stays flat. And when we get to impact and beyond, we would like both arms to be extended. People focus on this arm. It's a two-arm swing. We're going to swing both arms. So if I can keep both arms relatively the same length, I'm going to be able to operate the club better. Does that make
Sure.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just, and another thing I wanted to get your take on is when you play with somebody that thinks they're helping you and they're not, and you'll hear them say, "You picked your head up," and it's like, "No, I didn't." Oh yeah, you raised. There. I can tell you that there's times I've kind of raised up and stepped out of a swing for whatever reason, maybe a bee was flying in my ear or the scotch wore off or whatever. I don't know, but I'm just saying that that's one thing that just irritates me is like you pick your head up, keep your head down. Like I like to take my wedge, my gap wedge over there and help them keep their head down so they wouldn't talk.
All right, let me address that. I'll address that in three ways. Okay.
Okay.
Number one, the cause of what makes you look like you have your head up is when you flip your wrist. Soon
Yeah.
as you do that, the club head gets ahead of you. Your weight goes backwards and it looks like this shoulder comes up. So then people pick on your head because that's all they can see. But the cause is that your wrists flip. Okay. You just said, I step out of it. The cause of that is if I bring the club head, we would call over the swing plane or over the top, that weight is too heavy out there. And so then we have to come in like this,
Yeah.
we'll lose our balance. And that's why you step out of it. So the causes are the same thing I just talked about. Now, regarding the guy, I'll pick on guys on this one,
Quite all right.
that says keep your head down. Okay. I once had an assistant, and her father would keep telling her that, and she'd taken some lessons, and she wasn't very good. And by the time she finished 18 holes, she always went to the bar and cried and had a drink. So I have my five pink tea rule. That anybody that gives you advice before you play, okay, you give them five pink teas. They don't have to be pink, but you can use
Yeah,
pink.
yeah.
Every time they give you a piece of advice, you have to take a tea back. Okay, so she did this with her father as a great example. Well, he gave her four pieces of advice instead of 18 for 18 holes. He had to hang on to that one last tee until they went to the bar, and then he gave her one more piece of advice when they were finished. So you're limiting how much they can say. If it
Yeah.
doesn't
That's a
work,
good idea.
mhm.
I actually just quit playing golf with him because he was such a
Oh,
pain in the butt.
that's another way to approach it. That's that's another way.
So
Uh,
what is golf 8.5, Kay? I mean, I know, but I need you to tell our listeners and viewers, please.
All right. I've simplified it into Golf 8.5 stands for four things you do before the swing, which we call GCAP. Your setup.
Right.
That's the
Right.
setup. Setting the table for dinner, blah, blah, blah. We learn things and there are only 4.5 positions in the golf swing. So that adds up to 8.5. Four things before and only 4.5 things that you have to do in the golf swing. All right. Now, we learn it's called chunking, is what it's called. If you do something in little chunks, you have a 300% retention level. So there's only four positions in the golf swing. And so when I say zones, everyone's going to do this slightly differently, but you're going to get
Hmm.
somewhere in this, in kind of a zone of like throwing a ball, like a baseball at the catcher.
Right.
Be somewhere in this area and you're throwing strikes. All right. The better you get, we can narrow those zones, and the more not as agile, we'll widen those zones. So basically, the takeaway is that the club in my arms look like the letter Y. I have a Y when I take it back. I've turned. Okay.
Hmm.
Top of my backswing becomes an L. The L stands for leverage. All right. All right. Now, when I have a club in my hand, it kind of looks like a box. So we talk about that like an elevator. Well, the elevator has to come down first. And in our technology world, we call that lag. Okay. If I do my hips first, I lose my lever and all my speeds out there. So there's three positions of the backswing. I have a Y, an L, an elevator, and then there's a forward Y with my back leg released where my both arms are extended, and then I have two L's. So there's only 4.5 positions in the golf swing. Now I have a lot of the kids can do that, and I can show you videos of the kids. I can have a 4.5-year-old teach a class of 8-year-old boys because they do the same positions and they have to listen to that. If you do that over and over, pretty soon we put the 4.5 positions in a blender, and you can blend it, and then pretty
Hmm.
you can do it faster. But the beauty of it is that they don't need me anymore. They know where the club should be. So if you can, I figure out where the club should be, you can then self-correct rather than self-destruct.
And self-destruct happens to a lot of people, I think. It does. We're going to take another break, come back and wrap up the show with Kay McMahon. And this has been fun. This has been a lot of fun. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm JT. We're talking with Kay McMahon today. Is it educay.com? Educay?
PatientGolf.com. Yeah, yeah, education.
Okay.
We got to put the KAY in the middle of it.
All right. Okay. Okay. We'll talk more about that when we get closer to wrapping up the show. We talked about everybody's parts of the golf swing, the things that you've seen over the years. How have you changed though? And since you started, that's only a month ago, but you started and you've evolved. We all do. But how has your teaching evolved?
That's a great question in the fact that my background is in physical education, health, and kinesiology. So everyone said I wanted to be a good player, and I was a fair player, but I did start late. And I really wanted to be a famous player so I could be a famous teacher. I kind of had it backwards, so I ended up being
Sure.
a teacher. So, but it's evolved in the fact that I was kind of teaching it very traditionally of how I had been taught. I then, when I realized that people weren't getting it as fast as they should, I knew that I had to make it simpler. I had to make it easier for people to understand. And my teaching has evolved in the fact that if I get people to understand what they're trying to do, the why that we talk about, why am I,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they have a much better way of doing it. So that's evolved a lot. And the other thing is really evolved into what I call Golf 8.5, because I now know that when I taught girls basketball, we never got the basketballs right away because we had to figure out how our hand had to move. So you have to understand the movement first in little chunks.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. The second thing is that when I teach it sometimes in lots of partners, and it's called binary feedback, which means that the partner gets to say, you asked about advice before, which is breaking a rule in golf. I think it's 8.2 or something that you can't give.
Yes.
That if you have a swing buddy that you say, I'm going to be working on my takeaway, you get to say yes and no if I have a why. That's all you get to say is yes and no, or three things, yes, no, nice shot. And that's called binary feedback. What we've learned from my research is that if you give somebody a yes or no, within three swings, the person will change, not by you telling them because they already know what to do. So it's really evolved into really understanding more of how people learn and making it simple. So those are the basic things. Is a lot of people I think in the industry don't like to teach it as parts, but golf pros when they practice, they're practicing positions all the time. They want to know where that club is.
Oh, sure, sure.
Mhm.
Another quick question. Every once in a while I'll ask somebody this question, Kay. Do you think people when they go to the range or even if they go to their net in the backyard, however they have it, do you think they actually hit too many balls?
Mhm. When I think there's a more effective way of practicing. Okay, if you practice, you need as much sensory feedback as you can get. So people need to practice in slow motion, not in fast speed. So people go whack golf balls all the time. That's not practice. I have, let's say, a number of people that actually practice in parts. I'll give you an example of a 15-year-old young lady. She's 108 pounds, hits the ball 270. Her swing speed's 100 miles an hour. And every night she has to do our 4.5 parts in parts. She does it 100 times, and her swing speed does that.
Yeah.
So when they go to the range, you're wasting energy. When I changed my swing, I only hit the ball 20 yards and I go pick up the ball, hit the ball 20 yards, and I could do that three or four times or with five or six buckets without wasting energy. It's a more effective way of practicing.
Yeah, because I see them, go to the range and they've got a large bucket and they're just pounding them. And they hardly take a breath in between shots. And it's like I learned, and this works for me. Learned before that I hit a shot, and then and this is common, I wait to hit another ball like I would be if I was on the course. So if it's, 2 or 3 minutes to get to your ball and set up and whatever, you know the courses you're playing. That's how I do it instead of just boom, pow like that. And that's actually worked for me because it's made me kind of take a breath, slow down a little bit. I don't have swing thoughts because it's easier for me to have an empty head. And so I work in the media. We all have empty heads. Okay. So I'm just saying, though, that I don't try, if I'm thinking about doing something like, bringing it up a little higher or whatever the example would be, I just think of that and only that. If not, I don't hardly think of anything except just, doing my version of your G cap, getting up and hitting the ball. But I gave up a long time ago of just pounding, 200 balls uh, at a time.
I call that Ruthie rake it in because they're hanging on to it. But I will say this, people should take practice swings with a purpose. So I may be working on my backswing, I might be working on my takeaway. So give yourself a practice, do three or four practice swings where you actually do it, look at it, look where the club is it closed, what is it? Give yourself as much sensory feedback as you can get. So during your practice swings, you can have purpose. I see people take these practice swings and they look like a whirly bird
Hmm.
trying to hit the ground. A practice swing should have a purpose, especially when you're out there. The other thing that I highly recommend is you can get these inch and a quarter tees. Most people, when you go to a range, you're hitting off of hard pan. You're hitting off of grass that a golf pro would never hit off of. They're hitting off of perfect turf on the ranges, and they
Right.
even roll the ball up and get a perfect lie even on the range that they're on. Put it on a tee. If you knock the tee out of the ground, it's going to be helpful. The other thing the tee helps is for anyone that has joint injuries, the tee is your best shock absorber. Just practice on tees, practice on tees, practice on tees. Not
There
long
you
ones, short
No,
ones.
no, the little ones. I got a bag full of them. Kay McMahon. Hey, again, tell everybody how they can find you.
You're very good. Okay, it's www, obviously, educationgolf.com, but it's spelled EDUKAY, my name,
Yes.
golf.com. And I will say this, I do online lessons, so you can be anywhere in the world. And I videotape the whole swing or the whole lesson. You get a voiceover of everything. And I also do recordings and send you schematics, etc. on, so I'm very high tech on that, but it's not a lot of data. You get a
Yeah.
whole library of your swings also with me. So,
Very good. Kay McMahon, thank you. Kay is going to stick around for the abusive after hours, but I want to thank her for being part of the show. And don't forget, we've got the Portland Golf Show coming up, and we'll be streaming live for an hour there every day. It's going to go on the social media platforms, the bane of my existence, and also Golf News Network. So until then, go out, play some golf, have some fun, but most of all, be kind. Take care, everybody.